I never thought I would be making this video, but here we are. In September of 2021, I moved to New York City, and I was on cloud 9. I was officially a college graduate. I just celebrated my 22nd birthday, and while there were many question marks in my life, I was moving to the Big Apple, and I had my first big girl job. But then things happened, or rather, life happened. And now I am back in Chicago, living with my parents. I left New York City exactly on September 24th of last year. So basically exactly after a year of moving there. And it's so weird because I really thought that move to New York City would be a start of a really long, joyous, beautiful era of my life, and it turned out to be a pretty short chapter of my life, and let's talk about why. The first reason was I loved the fantasy of New York City more than I loved the actual reality. As humans, we can so easily kind of romanticize a new job, a new place, a new person, and kind of think that once we have that shiny new thing, that we'll be happy and that all of our problems will magically disappear. No, you can run all you want to that new person, that new city, that new job, but you can't run away from yourself and what's going on up here, up in here. And at the time, life was kind of I don't know, I don't want to say I was not in a good place, but I will say that there was a lot of uncertainty in my life and just anxiety. I had just graduated from college. I got my first big girl job out of college. I had so many questions around, is the career path I chose for myself right? And I think also just internally, emotionally, I didn't feel there. I had a lot of moments where I just was doubting my situation, putting myself down, struggling with self-doubt and self-image. And I really thought that somehow New York City would make all of those things literally disappear from my life. And it's so false and it's such a lie. And I think it's normal when you're going through a hard time or struggling with something to kind of look to the future, look to this new thing that you're kind of hopeful for. But I think I took it too far. I really was in love with the idea of what I thought New York City could give me without realizing that everything that was going on in here and in here, I needed to figure that out for myself, and New York City couldn't change that. This is something we don't really talk about enough. It is hard to leave your loved ones and essentially start from ground zero. And when I moved to New York City, I knew absolutely no one. I had also never lived far away from my family because my college was literally 30 minutes from my childhood home. So I saw my parents and my siblings all the time. It's really hard, and I'll say it, I felt so much homesickness being in New York City. At this chapter of my life of being a really recent college graduate, trying to figure out my career, trying to figure out where I'm going, and also just having personal things happening in my life as well, I needed my support system. I needed my family and friends that I have counted on at different stages of my life to be with me and to be around me at this stage of my life. I want to stress that there's zero shame in that. I really struggled to let go of New York City and to move back home, because there was a part of me that was like, you're so weak. People do this all the time. There's some people that move to a completely different country. And I definitely had those like thoughts of, am I giving up on my dreams? Am I putting like comfort, family, friends before, maybe the life I envisioned for myself? But I think it's okay to say, you need your family right now. You need your loved ones around you right now. There's zero shame in that. And I think something I've had to keep telling myself is life comes in seasons. Like maybe there's a season where your family and being close to them is priority number one. And maybe there are other seasons of your life where being somewhere new, being uncomfortable, leaving, what you know behind is the season of the life you want to be in. And I think I just had to accept that while I do really want to experience that for a longer time of building a life away from my family and kind of starting over, so to speak, I wasn't ready for it right now. The last and final reason that I left New York City, I feel like you can probably guess. Like, let me give you 5 seconds. I know you've probably heard it a million times, but New York City is pricey. And while you've heard it before, I feel like it's important to talk about money and just be very transparent. So I got my computer out. I'm just gonna break down on average how much I was spending in New York City every month. So the biggest expense is almost always rent. And in New York City, I was paying $1,500 a month. And outside of rent, now this is where it gets bad. Outside of rent, my expenses varied a lot, but I calculated on average how much I was spending every month in New York City, and it came out to $2,451. So if you add my rent to that, on average I was spending $3,951 a month in total. I really didn't want to do the math of this, but I calculated out how much money that is for a year. I don't even want to put this on the screen, but on average, I spent $47,412 in that year that I was living in New York City, which is a lot of money. And when I really wrote down the net cost, net benefit, there really wasn't a huge net benefit. I felt weighed down by the fact that I wasn't, with my family, with my friends. I had, for a lot of it, kind of romanticized the fantasy of New York without really realizing that there's so much other things that come with living in New York City. Financially, I just felt like my financial goals were getting further and further out of reach. So because of those 3 main reasons, I moved back home to Chicago. I'm at my parents' house. All of these lovely background changes that you've seen, different rooms in my parents' house. And I feel like if you're watching this, most likely you're either thinking about moving to New York City or you have some curiosity around New York City. And I don't want you to take this as me just pummeling New York City and being don't move there, because I did love so many things about New York City, and I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna move there again, but it's just in this phase of my life, that's not really what I want. And I've realized that that's okay.